Welcome to this section part of the course. In this section, we are going to be learning about iterative do statements, the do loops. SAS have a simple iterative do statement. This statement allows us to execute a group of statements, but these statements have to be between do and end, based on a value of index variable. So a simple do loop syntax will be specifying do keyword and then an index variable, and we can have a start value to a stop value. So a start value is the initial value of our index variable, and it can be a number or an expression that evaluates to a number. Let us head over to SAS and look into a simple example. So in this video, we are going to demonstrate how can one do loops in SAS. So in SAS, the way we create loops is by specifying a do statement. And as I did mention when we were doing the if then do statement, is the fact that the do statements, all of them, they end with an end statement. So let's first learn how does loops operate in SAS. So let's call this example. So this is our first example. So let's say we have an initial value of x. However, we want to keep on adding until we reach, let's say, 3. So to do that, we want to repetitively increment x up until we reach the value of 3. So in SAS, a do statement starts with the keyword do, and then we need an index variable. So this index variable is used to tell us how many times are we looping or are we repeating whatever that we will write between do and end. So let's say we are going to start when the value of I, let's say 1, 2, 3. So this index variable starts from the value 1, 2, then 3. Let's say we want to keep on incrementing the value of x. Okay, and we end this and we run. So at first, the value of I, our index variable, will be 1. So it will be x is equal to 0 plus 1. And then for the next time, I will be 2. Then the value of x will increment by 1. So from 1 to 2, because it will say x is equal to the previous value of x, which was 1. So now it's going to be 1 plus 1. And then it moves on and say the value of I now is 3. Then it does the same thing, going to be incrementing x and say x is equal to 2 plus 1. And then we say now we stop when the value of I is equal to 2. But now let's see how will this run in SAS. So this is just a simple loop, just a simple example. Right. So when this finished when I was equal to 4 and x was equal to 3. Now let us look into another example. Let's look into another example. Let's say now we start when x is just 5. and say do I, let's say times 2, and we simply just say and after that and run. Now in this case we didn't do the looping. There is no SAS statement to execute that is between 2 and n. So our output is simply just going to be x being equals to 5 and I, which is x times 2, which is going to be 10. Let's run that. Which is what we can see from this output 8. Next, we are going to explain how to do while and do until loops. So let us understand a do while loops. A do while loop executes statements in the do loop while a condition is true. So we'll first specify the condition is the top of the loop so that the do while loop never executes if that condition is false. Another loop is a do until loop. So this loop executes in the do loop until a particular condition is true. So we evaluate the condition at the bottom of the loop so that the do until loop always executes at least once, even if the condition is false. Let us look into an example to better understand these types of do loops. Now let's look at an example of a do while. So a do while loop executes. So a do while loop repetitively executes while the condition is true. Say, for example, we start with x equals to 7. So we start our loop, say, do while x, say, less than 10. And we want to keep on incrementing x. And let's say n. So what will happen in this case is that SAS will check, is 7 less than 10? And that is true, and it will increment x. Then x becomes 8. So this loop will run until x equals to 10, because 10 is not less than 10. So the do while loop executes while the condition is true. Let's run this and see the output. So it stopped when x equals 10.